at the time that we are talking about this, is one day past Sarah's birthday. So happy
Yay!
belated birthday. I hope you have
I'm a
fun.
whole year older.
A whole year
Oh
older.
yeah. I got Tennessee style fried chicken.
That sounds fucking bombin'. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, it's awesome. They have gluten-free stuff too, and it's like actually crispy.
Ooh. I like how I
Like
do
a
the
regular.
awe of like, oh, that sounds so good and I can have it. No, you can't, Katie.
No, you can't have chicken.
You
Come
can't
on.
have chicken. You can't have beef. You can't have liver. No meow mix, meow mix. Please deliver over here.
None for you.
None for me. But that does sound
Hmm.
really good. Did you get Nashville
Oh, it's
hot or was it
awesome.
just regular Tennessee fried chicken?
Oh, I always get the Nashville hot, but then I got a box of the regular, and I can only eat like two at a time, so I'm definitely saving some. Hmm.
That does sound really good though.
I love it there. I wish it was closer.
Yeah. I wanted to try Nashville hot catfish while we were over in Tennessee, but I completely forgot about it.
Oh, oopsie. That sounds good though. I love catfish.
Catfish is so good. But in other breaking news of what happened last week, Julie and Lolly's case has a new suspect. And I think I messaged you this morning, and a couple other people messaged me. My mom actually ended up calling and waking me up that there was a connection with DNA from an individual who was arrested for other sexual deviant crimes. And the FBI has linked him to Julie and Lolly's. And they are looking for further information regarding him. So if you haven't checked out our social medias, we definitely shared that. But also go check out go check out Mind Over Murder, as it sounds like they're going to be doing an interview with Catherine Mills regarding the arrest and, well, not the arrest, but the process of solving this case. That and Bill Thomas is absolutely wonderful. I highly recommend him, and he does talk a lot about the Colonial Parkway murders as well as the Route 29 stalker, and we actually discussed while we were at CrimeCon a little bit of Julie and Lolly's case. So it's really, really cool to see that there's finally a resolution to that case and the families have closure.
That
But
was only back in the 90s, right?
yeah, which
96?
I think so. Well,
Okay.
I'm like, you'll have to forgive me because the last time I covered Julie and Lolly's case, I think was like episode 18 on the previous podcast. It it was like 20 years cold at that point, or like 30 almost. So it was a rough one, but at the same time, it's one that I have been following deeply for the last couple years because it's held a very special place in my heart. But to actually see that it's got resolution finally is really, really cool. And I'm so happy to see that there's work being done with that. However, with the criminal record of this individual, of what they listed on the FBI site and what I read through this morning on the press release, it sounds like he may be linked to further crimes and more murders. So, just as like a note, we will be covering Julie and Lolly's case eventually, and it will be your case, Sarah. So, look forward to that.
Yay! More nature crime.
Yep. And we'll be talking a little bit about how you can help and get involved. And if you want to do that today, I will also be posting a link in the show notes to the FBI press release. So, fun news in the true crime world, even though it's a week after the event. But for me, it's the day of the event. So, this is really cool. Alrighty. Outside of that, I don't think there's much banter that I have on my end, other than I am heading out for Missouri to go see June and James, and they will eventually
Missouri.
Missouri. They will eventually come back to the show. They're just really busy right now, so that's why you haven't heard from them in a while.
They be MIA.
They are. Plus, they have Starlink, which, if you guys remember, I was on for a while, and it is not the vibe when it comes to recording stuff. So definitely, they just they need to have their stuff figured out and things like that, and they're just trying to get by with life. So they'll return eventually, just not today.
Yay.
Aside from that, Sarah, you get to come out of the woods today.
Yay. Into the city.
Into the city.
Or wherever. Or the suburbs,
The
whichever you have in
suburbs.
store for me.
Well, we're going to a little chateau in Romania today. So I hope that you're looking forward to this and this crazy lady that we're going to be talking about.
Oh, lady. As soon as you said Romania, I was like, that vampire guy.
The vampire
He was
guy.
Romanian, right? What was
Who?
his name?
Vladimir
God.
Tepesh.
Yeah.
That is, well, technically, I believe Transylvania falls into Hungary and Romania nowadays. But we're not talking about Vlad Tepesh. I plan on covering him for a Halloween episode, so he'll be coming soon.
He's crazy.
He is crazy. He is fucking insane. But before we get started today, because I am so eager to talk about this case, like over the moon eager, because I found more information than I did the first time I went through. So I'm all types of happy and excited. While we understand that some individuals listen for the entertainment aspect of true crime, it's important to remember that these are real people with families who may still be suffering from their loss. These stories are not meant to open old wounds, cause further emotional damage to those involved, and we remind you to please be respectful and do not dox or contact those involved with cases. The case discussed on this podcast today may be disturbing to some audiences, and viewer discretion is advised. I don't know why I keep saying viewer discretion. I did that in last week's episode too. Apparently, I need to pull my lines back up for my disclaimer. Listener discretion is advised because we don't have video yet, because that's a whole nother can of worms to do.
Oh, God. Video editing on top of audio and. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have to actually have like a nice platform to do that on, because holy hell. I'm like, my biggest worry with that is, how do I get the voices to line up when I cut something? And then you guys get to see all the terrible edits, because oh my god, stuff gets cut all the time.
Then what you do is you create a bizarre enter thing and just put the audio over it.
Like,
You just
I
cheat.
couldn't figure it out. We'll be back with video shortly.
We'll be right back.
You just don't get to see us for the next 10 minutes because I couldn't line up our mouths with how we were talking, and it looks really bad, like a really bad dub.
hmm
Oh my goodness. Plus, I like sitting in my chair braless. Today I did put a bra on for Sarah because I'm wearing a little bit tighter of a
Yay.
shirt, so she doesn't have to see the boobies flying in the wind.
I'm just flapping around.
Just flapping around. Although she may see me start to sweat a little bit because it's a little warm out here still, and I had to turn the AC off, which is what you were hearing at the beginning outside of my phone now dinging. So yeah. Now that we're in a full mess of a situation of notifications and things going off, my phone is muted and we're ready to get started. So, before I get started with this, I do want to make mention that there are some historical questions as to dates in this case, as well as her original last name has been lost in history. So we're going to be going by the last name that she had at the time of her arrest for the bulk of the case. Vera Renczi was born in 1903 to a fading aristocratic family in Bucharest, Romania, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. Vera's mother had passed away when Vera was still a young child, leaving her to the care of her father. When Vera and her father moved to Birkenkrul, which is in Serbia, around 1916. From here, Vera's father enrolled her into a girls-only school at the age of 13, as he was predominantly like traveling for work because he was a very predominant businessman in the time. There's a tale told of how her father had given her a dog at some point when he was at home, and it was found dead in the garden. When Vera's father inquired as to what happened, Vera coldly responded, "I poisoned it." Vera's father asked her why, and she stated that she had overheard her father talking about giving the dog away to one of the neighbors due to its constant barking at night, and she wasn't going to let anyone else have it. Vera's father chastised her for this behavior and was said to have given her quite the thrashing for her jealous and possessive attitude. In her youth, Vera was noted as being incapable of maintaining a male or female friendship due to her having a snobbish or spoiled rich girl attitude. In her early teens, Vera had begun to show her true colors, though, embarking on endless love escapades and sexual scandals with men ranging from high school boys to adult businessmen and bankers.
Round.
Yeah, she was getting around. And mind you, this is
Oh my
like
god.
the early 1900s where it's like, oh my God, you showed your ankle. Oh, scandal.
Mhm.
Like, she's getting around. And not to mention, the influence and wealth of Vera's father couldn't keep her out of the spotlight for scandals that she was creating. In fact, Vera even was caught one night in a dormitory at a nearby all boys school around midnight. Many of these men who she dated were typically older than her as well. As a teenager, she would also regularly run off with men and return once she had grown bored of them. Vera's friends that she did have noted that when she was in a relationship, if she was not the center of her boyfriend's attention, she was simply gone or she would remove herself from the situation. To which I'm like, sometimes, yeah, that's okay. If he's like being nasty to you and like obviously not interested, get the hell out of there, girl. But at the same time, I'm like, if he's like busy with work or something and he just can't like be there right away, like give the man a break. He's
I
trying.
mean, if you're a repeat offender for that, I think it's a you issue and not a boyfriend issue.
Yeah, I think that's more of a you problem and not a me problem. How's that my problem?
Mhm.
So
Oh, you're bored because I had to chop wood.
it's theorized that the roots of her problem were planted much deeper than a lot of people thought, and possibly was even driven into her with a firm belief that she could not trust men. This created a low self esteem over time, and that bloomed into a dangerous concoction into her adulthood. Vera was possessive, jealous, and craved male companionship as well as attention, at times becoming regularly suspicious or stalking her partners to ensure the fidelity to her.
She's doing too much.
She's doing a little too much. So,
This is probably like a once a month thing too.
yeah, like she's going through them pretty regularly. I'm like, God damn, like, chill out, calm down, get some therapy. You'll be fine. However, therapy isn't a thing quite yet. We all go, mental health in
She's
this day and age couldn't be me.
They just put her in a loony bin, so that's unfortunate.
So, as you can imagine, with all of this running about, disappearing with strange men, and scandals around Vera's name, Vera's father must have been extremely relieved when she married one Karl Schick. And I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that as well. There's a lot of foreign names in here. Just get ready for me to struggle bus through this. Although this man was many years Vera's senior, he was a predominant Austrian banker. After a honeymoon to Tyrol, and I presume that's in Austria. However, it could have possibly been in Italy too. When I Googled that, that was the only two locations that had a Tyrol in it. So I'm presuming it's Austria. He probably took her back over there and back home. That's my presumption. Anyways, after the honeymoon, the newlyweds moved into a chateau outside of the city of Birkenkrul. 14 months following their marriage, Vera and Karl had a son who was named Lorenzo. Vera began to settle down into the role of the doting housewife and mother, leaving behind that tumultuous lifestyle that she had lived in her teen years. Shortly after, though, Karl had begun to start working in the city again. This left Vera to her newborn baby and her thoughts, which drifted to pathologically suspecting Karl of being infidelitous to their marriage. She would mentally picture Karl, not at work, where he was supposed to be, but in the arms of one of his coworkers or other women he'd happened upon. The idea was impractical and unfounded, but it felt frighteningly real to Vera. And shortly after, she began to accuse Carl of having affairs and being unfaithful to her.
Okay, so she sounds like the type of girl that would yell at her boyfriend for like getting looked at in a grocery store for like
Exactly.
hours. Just
Exactly.
scream at him, corner him, be like, "You're fucking cheating on me with that girl who
Yeah.
she looked at you in the deli aisle.
She looked at you while you were picking out vegetables. It was just 1 second. Oh my God. Yeah. She's definitely
You
that
were
type of
touching an
girl.
orange. What do you think she was thinking about that?" There are people like that though.
There are.
There
There
are people out
absolutely
there.
are.
God.
So,
Oh,
shortly after this, Carl vanished. And Vera told people of how Carl had gone away on a business trip, and that soon began to spiral into a tale of how Carl had left her and the baby, abandoning them without so much as a note to why.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. Vera was regarded as being in a mourning like period during this time in which she lavished all of her attention on their son, Lorenzo. Within a year, people began to talk and gossip, though. Vera had been seen out of the chateau and in the company of several men, including one, Joseph Renczi, who, by all accounts, she became devoted to as she had with her previous husband, Carl. Now, as gossip starts to swirl and bubble in this small community, at around the same time, she announced to people that Carl had been killed in a vehicular incident in Romania. Being as Vera is from a predominant family and the story seems credible enough, law enforcement goes ahead and they issue the death certificate and hand it over to her, leaving her to be a widow and able to remarry. And she does just that.
Oh no. Hopefully this guy yells back. I'm just kidding.
She married one, Joseph Renczi, shortly after making the announcement of her estranged husband's death. Now, Joseph Renczi was noted as being known for his good looks and unfortunately taking a large amount of mistresses in his time,
Oh
which
good.
isn't really something that Vera herself is happy about. The
Sounds like she's been manifesting.
Mhm. So this relationship was turbulent to say the least. While Vera resituated herself into the devoted housewife act, Joseph hadn't really become the devoted husband. Joseph, even though he was married, proceeded to still play the bachelor role, and he cheated on Vera in a frenzy after their marriage. Then, one evening, after nearly 4 months of marriage, Joseph was struck with an odd illness, and a short time later, he vanishes. Now, when people started asking where Joseph had gone to, Vera originally said that he had left on a business trip, then ultimately shifts to after a period of time that he deserted her ultimately. Then, roughly a year after Joseph had disappeared, Vera claimed that she received a letter in the mail regarding Joseph wanting a divorce. After this, Vera wouldn't remarry again. However, she did engage with other encounters over the next 7 years. In the evenings, Vera would make her way down to the streets of Birkenkrol, where she'd visit cafes and local night spots. Vera's presence in the area wasn't unnoticed, and eventually she earned the nickname from the locals as the Mysterious Huntress. Vera would seek out men from vastly different and diverse cultural and situational backgrounds. Some of these men were rich, some were poor, others were stout, and some were tall, and then some were handsome, and ultimately some were homely. Some of these men weren't married, and then some of them were, and they carried out secret affairs with Vera, while others weren't so secretive and basically paraded her around the streets with them while still wearing their wedding band. Ultimately, though, at this point, she didn't care. Vera would seduce them and lead them back to her chateau, where they would appear for a couple of months, weeks, or days after forming a intimate connection with Vera. Then they'd simply vanish, never to be heard from again. Then things went wrong when Vera seduced a young banker named Leo Pachish, who was married. Leo had attempted to break things off with Vera upon learning that his wife was pregnant and expecting their first child. However, Vera, with her charismatic and charming nature, persuades Leo to stay for one last meal. When Leo failed to return home from what he told his wife was a short business trip, she began to question what was going on and made an inquiry at his office, to which they told her Leo wasn't on a business trip. There was no business trip.
He was on a business trip.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to do these huge business trips, man.
Everybody is. Now, obviously concerned, Miss Pachish decides to go to the authorities with this information, believing her husband to be missing, or worse, he's been met with foul play. The police, though, didn't see any evidence to suggest that such a belief could be true, and told Miss Pachish that there was nothing they can do. And here, ladies and gentlemen, comes our Bad Bitch Award for today. Miss Pachish, who disagreed with what the officers were telling her, began her own inquiries and investigations into the disappearance of her husband. When she discovered that he had been seen in the company of a beautiful blonde woman in Birkenkrol, the mysterious huntress herself, Vera Renczi. Miss Pachish returned to the police with this new information and demanded a questioning be done of Vera, to which law enforcement obliges. It's more of like, okay, we'll humor you, whatever. In this interview, Vera was regarded as being blunt and frank, stating that, yes, the now missing banker had been her lover. But when she discovered who he was married to, being a woman that she detested, she told him to get dressed and leave. And ultimately, she hadn't seen him since. Now, law enforcement deemed this plausible and kind of were like, well, we've done all we could do to Miss Pachish. However, she's not fucking having it. So she decides to go back to investigating Vera and asking around local establishments about further information. By the time Miss Pachish returned to the police a third time, she had built a list of other men who had disappeared in the company of Vera and urged law enforcement to search the chateau. Now in fear for their reputation within their own city, law enforcement acts quickly. They surround the chateau and they begin the process of searching the home and the grounds. When they make it inside of the chateau, though, an older servant woman refused fiercely to allow law enforcement to enter the cellar. And in a result, they had to restrain her with handcuffs. So I'm like, what do you know? I feel like you know something. So law enforcement broke into the cellar and made their way down a long vaulted stone corridor. In the process of doing so, though, they actually had to physically break through 3 different iron doors. And also in some of the other writings, like it's like you get through the first like 2 doors and then the old servant lady's like there. I'm like, God damn, this is like going through a dungeon. Like, you shall not pass. It's just the final boss battle of this old lady. It's a weird write-up that I read. I was like, I think that she was probably at the top. I don't think Vera's got her like trapped between a set of doors.
It's like, I'll feed you later.
I'll feed you later. You need to stand guard here.
I need you to guard the 3rd door. It's like the Knights Templar.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been waiting hundreds of years.
Just like the Dark Souls music starts playing and she's standing there with her little like broom and mop bucket, just like, you shall not pass. throws down like Gandalf.
She
So
says you're not allowed in here. Pulls out a shillelagh.
just a morning star just completely twirling that thing like you cannot pass this point. Say the magic word.
You must pick the right cup.
What is your favorite color? So, once inside the cellar, law enforcement came across quite the scene. The walls of the large room were lined with 35 zinc coffins, each of them bearing a name of its occupant, among which one had the name Lorenzo inscribed upon it. At the center of the room stood an easy chair, next to which there was a half burnt candlestick, along with a bottle of champagne and a glass. And it's not completely understood if the glass already had champagne in it or if it was empty at the time. Now, Vera was arrested in her home that day, then was taken in for questioning before the magistrate, where at first she denied everything and claimed that the men inside of those coffins were friends and townspeople who'd been killed during the First World War. Furthermore, when the chateau was searched, a secret compartment behind the boudoir was found in her bedroom, and there was arsenic in there. And it was said that there was arsenic, like enough of it, that it could kill at least 100 men easily. So, arsenic at the time was common in Serbia, as it was a
Oh,
byproduct
okay.
of mining and producing other heavy metals of the time. So, it's not exactly stated what form this arsenic was in. However, I'm going to presume that it may have been like in a tin form or maybe even like in its like shell based stage where it's like, oh, we just like scrape a little bit of this off and it's just pure arsenic.
That answers the question I had, which is like, how did this lady
How did this lady get
get
arsenic?
that
She just
much
went
arsenic?
walking out into the forest to the mines, but hi, boys, you wouldn't mind if I take this, would you? And they're like, no, pretty lady, bye.
And she flashes her ankle.
Flashes her ankle, just like, ooh.
Throw those ankles around. Look
Now,
at that skin.
when Vera is presented with this evidence, she confesses in full. And her confession was written to be, my first husband was the one who had made me madly jealous of other women. I couldn't endure the idea of him ever looking at them. And after a year, I felt that he would soon turn away from me. Not entirely, but just enough to make me jealous. I swore to myself that he would never belong to another woman. So I killed him.
Jesus.
My second husband did not last long. I was obliged to kill him after 4 months because he talked to other women. From that time on, it became like a disease with me. I wanted young men. Yet, once I possessed them, I could not bear the idea that any other woman might come after me. I had the power to tantalize them. They would follow me. Then, perhaps a week after they had remained at the house with me, I would notice that they grew either distracted or would say something about having to return home. I would consider these the first signs of the beginning to the end. And consequently, my first burst of passion for them would be followed by jealousy, and I would poison them without waiting any further.
That's wild. She's like, come stay with me. And they're there for like a week, which is a long
That
time.
is a long time, especially if you were
She's
just
just,
getting started in a relationship. Like, nah, man, get out of my
yeah,
space.
to just be with a lady. But she also reminds me of the meme where it's like, you're the most jealous girl I know. It's like, you know other girls.
You know other girls?
Oh,
Now, when she was asked about why she had killed at the time her 10-year-old son Lorenzo, too, it was discussed that he had stumbled upon the coffins in the cellar and learned of his mother's pastime and he had attempted to blackmail her, which he learned very quickly you never blackmail a poisoner. When asked why she had killed all these men, Vera stated, "They were men. I could not endure the thought that they would ever put their arms around another woman after they had embraced me."
That's wild. She's wild.
She is wild. Lady, you're scaring me.
Hmm.
Then the magistrate asked, "But you also murdered your son." To which Vera responded, "He had threatened to betray me. He was a man too. Soon he would have held another woman in his arms."
God.
I'm like, ugh.
Ah.
Ah, ah.
Ma'am, stop.
Lady, you're
Boy
scaring
moms be
me.
like.
Boy moms be like.
No.
When asked about the easy chair situated in the center of the room and the champagne, Vera stated, "I like to go down there in the evenings and sit amongst my victims, gloating over their fate." So Vera would go down, pour herself a glass of champagne every night, with the men that she had poisoned with not only arsenic, but strychnine. And obviously, take a strange and rather sick pleasure in knowing that the men who had crossed her threshold would never leave. Chances are that some of these men that Vera had seduced during her rampage did actually love her. However, all she ever saw was the potential for infidelity. When that idea even began to cross her head, Vera simply would invite them to dinner and poison their food with arsenic, strychnine, or at times both. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about these two poisons in particular because I did work with strychnine in college where we actually had to extract it from a gopher bait pellet. Fun lab, pain in my
Oh,
ass because it was completely left up to us to decide what method we needed to go with. I'm not saying, okay, in case you're from Arizona State University and you have to take this as your like final test in analytical chemistry, you have fun with that. But anyways, strychnine is derived from the plant Strychnos nux vomica, which is found in southern Asia. Today, strychnine is typically used as a pesticide or a pest killer. So, for example, rat poison or gopher bait pellets. However, there are different variants of poison used today rather than strychnine. Now, strychnine is an odorless, bitter, crystalline white powder. What strychnine does to the human body is that it prevents the proper operation of chemicals that control nerve signals to muscles in the body. So, when poisoned with strychnine, within 15 to 60 minutes of a severe poisoning, a human body will have severe and painful muscle spasms. And while the individual is still conscious during the portion of this ordeal, they'll ultimately start to fade due to respiratory failure, which leads to brain death, and if not treated, will finally cause death in full. Now,
gross.
arsenic, on the other hand, is a naturally occurring element in the environment. It can be found in rocks, soil, water, air, plants, and animals. Of course, varying in concentrations or levels of arsenic in the material. Arsenic poisoning occurs when you intake high levels of the heavy metal arsenic. It also shares common features with other heavy metal poisonings like mercury and lead. Arsenic poisoning can occur in two common themes. Either it's a heavy level poisoning, in which the symptoms tend to show with stomach aches, diarrhea, coughing, chest pain, vomiting, and these will usually present within 30 minutes of a high level dose. Then there's a extended long-term exposure, which is basically from environmental sources like contaminated water, for instance. I think it's over in Arizona. They tell you not to drink the tap water because it does have arsenic in it. And there's a couple other areas throughout the United States and I presume the world that have contaminated water sources like that.
Oh, yeah, Greeley just sold their water source and now they're stuck with one that's been contaminated with arsenic.
This is why we drink
Hmm.
bottled water. I might be getting
Yay!
microplasticed, but you know what? At least I don't have arsenic that's causing me kidney stones. So, these symptoms for a long term exposure tend to present themselves later in life with different health ailments, including cancer. Ultimately, Vera was sentenced to life in prison, and some sources state that she received a death penalty, while others state that she received leniency for her social status and being a female. Vera began to display signs of schizophrenia, though, while she was serving her sentence, stating that she had began talking to the men who she'd killed at times, screaming at them, and she felt as though they were surrounding her. To which I'm like, maybe it's schizophrenia, maybe it's a haunting, maybe it's karma. Who knows? But Vera was transferred to a mental institution as a result. So she's going to an asylum, basically. And in 1939, she died of cerebral hemorrhaging in the mental institution.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not either. Like, it's the early 1900s. Medicine isn't what it was today. But at the same time, I'm like, the fucking mental institution. I'm like, I would take prison over an asylum any day, especially in the early, like, 1900s.
Time to go to lady jail. I hope you're ready to never shower or shit in a normal place again.
Have people rocking in the corners and screaming at nothing. You'll fit right in, Vera.
Yeah, give it a few weeks. You'll be right there.
But that is the story of the original Black Widow killer, Vera Renczi. And she's interesting because she's not killing for material gain. She had all the money she could need, anything that she could need.
She
It
threw it all
was
away.
simply out of jealousy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I guess it kind of makes sense, especially if like she didn't have the ability to develop normal relationships early in life. You know? She never learned how to like properly socialize because she was just a little brat.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like she didn't know how to properly socialize, and additionally, like, her dad's gone all the time, so that kind of leaves that gaping hole of, like, I hate to say it, but daddy issues, and being like, oh, you're gonna
Yes.
leave me too. Like, it's the abandonment thing coming up
You hate
too.
to say it, but it screams daddy
It
issues.
screams mommy and daddy
Oh no.
issues. Like,
She
ooh
poor
no.
Vera. And then she grew up and started murdering people. But it also makes sense that like the only reason she could keep people around was like through physical prowess, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Like yeah, that's the only way she could get him to stay is once the hormones started going. And then weak when they're like, I need to go feed my cat. She's like, no!
How dare you think of leaving
Oh,
me? Would you
into the
like dinner?
basement. Oh, I taste copper. It's nothing.
It's nothing. Don't worry
Just a little
about it.
coppery today.
But yeah, she'd mix it in with their food or their, like, wine that they were drinking because, like I said, strychnine doesn't really have a flavor to it. It's very odorless, and if you have something strong enough to cover that flavor, you'd never know. And of course, I feel bad because honestly, if you think of a standard dinner and you're sipping wine or something, and you're sipping that throughout the whole time that you're having dinner, and then all of a sudden this man's like, okay, dinner was nice, thank you, stands up and goes, whoomp, right down.
Hmm.
And she's just sitting there still drinking her wine that's not poisoned.
God, this is a whole vibe though.
Mm-hmm.
Poisoned wine, murdering many men.
Absolutely. It is a vibe. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, no, looking at some of this time around, I was like, I missed some stuff. I'm like, okay. I didn't know that she had actually poisoned with strychnine too until I found a Romanian article, which will be in my references. And I highly suggest if you're going to read it, open it in Google Chrome because they'll translate it for you. However, just be aware, not everything's translated perfectly.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that is the story of the original Black Widow killer. So,
She is serving.
She was serving something.
She was crazy and evil, but
Arsenic.
she is serving. Specifically strychnine.
Specifically strychnine and arsenic, because I think what happened is that when Joseph got sick, like I think that she saw Carl get sick originally and kind of kept it on the down low. However, when Joseph got sick, she was probably like, oh shit, I need to add something stronger. So they're just gone immediately. Because nobody wants to deal with the vomiting and diarrhea that comes from arsenic poisoning.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
So she was
what a
probably like,
nightmare.
I need to get rid of these men immediately.
She's like, Grubby, let's kill them faster.
What else can I add to this
Jesus.
poison concoction? Huh. Let's put strychnine in here.
Wine. More wine.
More wine.
See, that's a crafty, evil thing to do and come up with for that time period. Because you'd be feeling a little bit woozy, but you wouldn't think anything of it. Mm-hmm. Because you're like, oh wow, this wine.
This wine. This is good wine. And mind you, it's
Great
stronger.
wine.
Stronger across the lake, people, across the ocean. I'm not gonna lie to you. I
Yeah,
went
like,
to Italy. I had one glass, and at the time that I was there, I'd been drinking a little bit. Like it was fine. But I had one glass there. I stood up and I went, "Whoa, the ground is moving."
everything's feeling a little bit snaky.
Everything's moving. It's kind of wobbling. Ooh, okay. This is what we're messing with.
You're like, what's the percentage? And they're like, oh, 50. And you're like, arrivederci. You just hit the floor.
I just remember walking out of dinner in Rothenburg, Germany, because I had had a glass of wine. And the gal that was sitting next to me, we were only supposed to have like a singular glass of wine. She's like, Katie, I know that you could do this. Go ahead and like finish mine off. I'm like, okay. So I drank hers, I drank mine, and I drank what was left in our little decanter. And I stood up and I went, oh, I need to go lay down.
No.
Thank you again for listening to Spattered. Please make sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram at Spattered Podcast and on X at Spattered Pod. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to be notified when the show goes live or drops a video. As always, if you have a case request, any questions, or are interested in sponsoring the show, please email me at spatteredpodcast@gmail.com. Spattered is a true crime podcast hosted by Caitlin Gardner and Sarah Ray. The research and edits for this episode were done by Caitlin Gardner. All the music for the show was done by Lucio Cardenas. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there. And remember, the truth is always in the blood.